I was standing in the back of my dad's pickup, and just two random guys just jump on and all celebrating together.
We were driving, and there's this huge crane. With a white guy is driving this huge crane, and everybody's like climbing on top of the crane.
A crane?
It's incredible! What are you doing?
Yeah, there was a guy drifting with the border at the Churchill intersection, and made like a huge silk cloud and then set off. It was great.
Anyways, it was great. Okay, Tasbe.
I saw everyone twice yesterday.
Sri Lanka. Tracy.
No.
Croatia.
It's like a modified car. It's like one person.
Jonathan. Genetics and linkage today. Talking about linkage. Just to refresh our mind and get into the mood, talking two groups. What do you remember from Mendelian genetics? Topic 3, long time ago. Some of the keywords are on the side. Spend a little bit of time to refresh your memory. Right, what did he become most famous for? Flowers first and after that, please, right? What happened with the flowers? Pea flowers, yes. He was looking at the pea flowers to start with, wasn't he? What did he discover? Okay. So Jonathan, on that pair of chromosomes, there's two pairs of chromosomes, the black ones. You can just use one of them, and on the ledge, where there's the sellotape, there's also some alleles. So what he discovered was that there was different colors for different types of genotypes. Genotypes, rings a bell? Yeah? What's the definition? Okay, tell me what it is. What's a genotype?
Yes. So, I guess the gene that is on the offspring, that would be.
Yes, and what's then the phenotype?
Oh, the gene is the one that is not shown, but the pheno is the one that they show.
Okay.
The genotype is the buildup, like the makeup, and the phenotype is what is represented or what is.
So if we're just looking at one aspect, one allele, one trait, one loci, we only have that one to look at. If we were making gametes from a homozygous, how many options would I have? Whether it's dominant or recessive. I'm going through meiosis, yes?
You could only get the recessive and dominant.
Yes, you could only have a gamete that's either, there's only one, yes? There's only one trait that's in the gamete. So if we have the heterozygous, what are my options?
50-50?
50-50. Okay, yeah, that's correct. So what we're gonna look, this is looking at one aspect, right? Today we're gonna just go back to Mendel's P experiment, because there he looked at two different characteristics, and whether these characteristics were homo or heterozygous. So now on the it's on two different chromosomes. That was the lucky thing about Mendel. He chose characteristics that were on separate chromosomes. Later on in the class, we will look what happens if it's on the same. So we're looking at dihybrid process. For example, we want to look at P color and P surface. Remember that experiment that he did, and he opened up the pods and he looked what the P's looked like. Right? Sure. So you could either have a yellow P or a green P. Right? The other option was you could have a smooth P or a shrunkled up P. Smooth or what do they call it then? Rough. So we have to make some decisions here, right, on what we're going to call each thing. So we say that yellow is a capital Y and green is a small y, right? A smooth P would be capital S and a rough P would be small. Rough P would be small s. It doesn't matter. If you get a question like this in your exam, as long as you have your map of what is what. It doesn't. Okay, so we have parent 1 and parent 2. Okay, so what is parent 1's? Parent 1, parent 2. What options do I have?
Aren't they all heterozygous?
Oh, so like,
Yes? Abisha?
like you can have big Y and
Yes.
big S.
Big Y, big S.
Big Y, small S.
Big Y, small s.
Or small Y, big S. And
Small y, big S.
small Y, small S.
Small y, small s. Okay, so it's a heterozygous cross. So we expect the same gametes to appear in the other parent. So get out your notebooks and see. After you filled in the whole square, I want you to start looking. So what we're doing in the square is genotype. Yes, then we're going to interpret the genotype into a phenotype. So you have
wait.
Y, big Y, big Y, big S, big S. So you have 4 letters in each square of the Punnett square, right? And once you have your 4 letters per square, you can determine whether this is a yellow or a green phenotype or a smooth or a rough. Yes?
What is dominant? Like the yellow P and the blue.
Everything has capital.
But I have
So yeah, the yellow P is dominant and the smooth P is dominant. Yeah?
And then I just find out what percentage of people.
Yes.
Brings me back to the days of the academy where I studied biology.
Should have held on to it.
So now I can
Oh, you got me?
and then now I can
If you finished example 1, you can work yourself on example 2. It's on the board. Okay, and once the other group is finished, we will have a look at the first example. Okay, so we now want to predict the phenotypic ratio for a heterozygous at both loci crossed with a heterozygous for S and a homozygous for Y. So this is your one parent, right? This is your one parent. You got. Are you still on the first one? Are you finished? Oh no. Yes.
Does this mean that for one you have to have big Y and Y, and then for the other one, big S, small s, is it?
Wait, is this for like sex length?
So we're going to do exactly the same as we did here. We look at both parents, right? So the one parent will stay the same. Yeah. The other parent is, so let's say this is the Y and this is the S. It's still heterozygous for S, for smooth or roughness, but it's now become homozygous dominant, which we said was purple. This is your other parent. So you have less possibilities. So in the first example, what did we find? How many yellow smooth were there?
12.
In the first example?
9.
9. Yellow rough? 3. Green smooth? 3. Green rough? 1. Okay, so that's very different from when we looked at just one. We had a 75% versus a 25%, right? If we looked at a heterozygous. So this is very different. So if there's more than one allele involved, it gets more complicated, right? Then let's look at the second one together. So the parent one stayed the same. How many combinations can I make from the examples on the board?
Big Y's,
Big Y,
big S,
big S,
big Y, small s.
big Y, small s. Does it matter whether I combine the other two if I'm just looking at ratios? No.
I didn't get you to do extra work. I told you you were doing extra work. I even said
Extra work is good. So let's see what are our possibilities. Big Y. Ooh, I have to write very small.
Can we not use S's and instead use R and G's?
and G because
Green and rough.
S looks the same whether it's small or big, but an R is a
It's
different
different.
shape.
You can decide whatever you want if it's easier for you to look at. Y, big S, small s, big Y, small y, big S, big S, big Y, small y, big S, small s, right? If I have a yellow pea, how can I determine what the genotype was? Any ideas? What can I cross it with? Yes. With a heterozygous one. Do you always know what a heterozygous one is? From one of the four, we are very certain what is the genotype. Which one is that? A rough green one. We know that's recessive for both traits. Right? So if we have an unknown, the best thing, if you want to find out what it is to look at the recessive, double recessive trait. Okay? So we have a, possibilities are these or these, and we're going to cross it with a YYSS. Right? We're going to work on the same type of Punnett squares. And look at the, let's imagine that this is the one. Right? So it's just a probability kind of thing. What options do I have to make gametes from this one? What's the combinations I can make?
Big Y, small s.
Big Y, small s. Always, right? There's no difference if I combine them any other way. So if this were the correct one, we cross with small y, small s. What are my options? Big Y, small y, small s, right? But there's only one genotype created if I do that. What happens if I choose the other option? So we know that this one only forms one gamete, yeah? Small y, small s. That's the one we're crossing with. How many options do I have for big Y, small s, small s?
Big Y, small s.
Yes.
Small s and small y.
Yes. What are the potential answers I can get here?
Big Y. Small y.
Big Y, small y, small s, or small y, small s. So now, if I take that yellow P and cross it with a double recessive, the green rough P, and I make a first generation, an F1, what is my expectation?
Either 50-50, yellow and green, or 100%.
So what if you observe from that I get P's that are 50-50, what must have been the genotype? Heterozygous for the Y, for the yellow color, right? If I only find that I get one type, we know it was the other one. So we know that from the crossing, from the creation of male plants, from the fertilization, we have two different phenotypes. Right? We know that. Because that's what's given. That's your observation that's been given.
So it has to be
Right?
one that has two.
So it must be the one that can only produce the two
It doesn't have
phenotypes. Yeah? However, very valid question from Casey. Why don't we see 50-50? What happens in life? Who's got only sister siblings here? How many? Oh my. Who's got any brother siblings? You've got 3 sisters. How come? Because it's a 50-50% chance, right? Whether you're a boy or a girl. How come he's got 3 sisters? And he's the only brother?
It's just random.
Chance, probability. Yeah? It's random. So, but the fact that we see 2 phenotypes helps us determine what the genotype would have been. We easily walk through the worksheet. So please open the link. It's a Google Doc. And then I also send you a photo for the chi-square. There is an image on the actual worksheet, but I think it would be much easier. The photo is a bit at an angle. If you take the straight image, I also sent you the image so you can easily count. See, it's hard to count 5 rows like in that image. It's much easier to count rows in a straight image. So both images you've got.
Go to it.
Good. This is your Google Doc.
So cute. Why are they so cute?
Because they're not. So you can go through the worksheet, look at your possibilities, work in teams, so you can support each other.
Why are they so cute?
That's where you want to look at it. And basically what we want to see, what we're predicting, we've just made these nice Punnett squares. What we're predicting is that what we get in real life. And if it's not what we get in real life, how significant is the difference? Bits of statistics, bits of maths. Now we come to the fact that we already mentioned, there is also linked traits. You mentioned 6, linked to reading. There's other things. If traits are very close together, on the chromosomes, and we go through meiosis, we talked about this, what could happen?
They are in
What's it called? 2 lessons ago.
It's not recombination.
Yeah? They can recombine. We get the crossover happening. So this is not a very good example. Sorry. If they're close together, in general, statistically, looking at probability, it's probable that these 2 genes always inherit together, right? The further they are away from each other, the further the chances that there's some recombination happen during the prophase 1, right? You remember? The duplicated chromosomes were laying together and they can recombine, right? So that's what we call linked traits. So I want you to go onto your computers and do a bit of investigation. Because Morgan realized that through fruit fly experiment. Okay, can you summarize what was the significance of Morgan's research?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, he was an American evolutionary biologist.
Rachel, can you hear him?
So that's what we found out that
I can't get him. Move on.
Okay, yeah.
I can't.
No, you don't have to walk me through your whole presentation. Just give me a summary.
Alright, so basically he did like he was trying to find like the heredity of like flies. Looking at like their wing shape and like eye color, and then he was looking at male and female flies, and then the males had like red eyes, and the females also had red eyes, but then they had like there was one gene that coded for like white eyes, and it was sex linked, and so it only transferred on the X chromosome, and then on the F1 generation there was like there were 3 offspring with red eyes and 1 offspring with white eyes, and then in the next generation, one of the, I think the male was a white eye fly,
Yes.
was it, in the F2 generation? And the female was a carrier, had the chromosome
Yes.
for the white eyes, and then
But was heterozygous
yeah,
first,
yeah,
right?
it's heterozygous.
Okay.
And then, yeah, and there was 50, yeah,
It was
50,
a white male and a white.
white and female, and then red eye.
Okay, so basically bottom line is, Besha, what did he discover?
Well, he found out, as Tamalka said, that the white eye or the gene for eye color
Could be
was
awesome.
chromosome. So there was a chance that, and it was also recessive because it was only after like 3 crosses that he found females with white eyes. Also, the ratio didn't match with Mendel's ratio.
So that was the main thing. I was looking at these fruit flies. I was like, this is not in line with what has previously been published. He was only born after Mendel, Mendel died. So he couldn't just go to him and ask him the question. So he had to research. How can I find out? He crossed it and crossed it back again, and so there were linked genes, just like that. There's linked genes.